just as good as Saturday night. So now we'll move to adoption of the agenda. And do I have any comments from, I'll look to administration first for adoption of the agenda. Any additions, deletions?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, members of the committee. Administration has no additions or deletions this morning.
All right, and council, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Oh, Councillor Kowalski.
Under 6, I may notice a motion.
6A
We just have 6.
or 6? We'll do 6.1 under notice of motion. And, okay. Okay, and with that, could I have a,
Do you want a motion to accept?
motion to accept the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move that the agenda be accepted with the addition.
All right, all in favor? All right, the motion is carried. And we will move to the adoption of the agenda, or to, sorry, to the minutes, and I will look to Councillor Kuchar-Johnson. Would you like to put that motion on the floor?
That the adoption of the June 4th, 2024 minutes be received as information,
As
be
presented.
adopted. Doesn't say.
All right, I'll look to council for any comments. Questions, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? All right, the motion is carried. Oh, and I should note that, I'm sorry for attendance, we are all here with the exception of Councillor Hoofsloot, who I do not believe is online. Okay. And now we will move, it is 9:02, we're a little ahead of schedule, but we will move to public input, and I see we have one registered speaker, Mr. Glenn Barrett. You know the routine, Mr. Barrett, but come forward, press the button, and let us know your name and where you reside.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. My name is Glenn Barrett, resident of Parkland County, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you today. Regarding the codes of conduct scheduled for this afternoon, in the interest of promoting full transparency and accountability, I would like to respectfully ask if Council would consider publishing the codes of conduct for public review. Additionally, could Council read out these codes of conduct during the afternoon session? This would greatly enhance public trust and ensure that everyone is fully aware of the standards and expectations that guide the conduct of council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. I would like to see, I would not mind reading them out for transparency. I'm looking to administration. We will have procedure. We will have advice on procedure, but any comments?
Point of order here, this was comments from the gallery,
Okay.
and that's all there was. So if you want to continue this debate, then put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Comment as well.
Okay.
Great, thank you for coming in today. I will note that council does go in camera to discuss matters that are private, typically those that relate to conduct, personnel, and as well as anything to deal with funding. So for anything related to contracts, common practice used in, I believe, every municipality for items that fall under the Freedom of Information Protection Act, that we do go into private. Should there be any motions arising out of the in-camera, those will be shared publicly after each of the items on our afternoon agenda are dealt with. So the public will have an opportunity to see publicly any decisions that are made in camera will be made public immediately thereafter. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Are there any other people here that would like to come forward for public input? All right, seeing none, we will move forward to 4.2. And we have an appointment with the library board, so I will look to administration for an introduction, please.
Madam Chair, the appointment's for 9:30.
Oh, you're right.
So
Okay, so let's move forward with some other business. We've got a 10 o'clock appointment, so let's go to the notice of motion. Councillor Kowalski, are you prepared to put that on the floor?
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the third time I'm bringing this up to council, and I'm hoping that that when it comes to council in the next meeting, that is given the due respect that it deserves. My notice of motion will be about following our requirements a 4-year rotation basis to review our bylaws. And obviously, our experience has been we need to look at our procedures for meetings bylaw, we need to look at our code of conduct bylaw, and I will bring that as a notice of motion at the next meeting.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Kowalski, for that. And I guess we will go to,
Madam Chair, just again on a point of order, the comment was, this has come 3 times to council, twice. We've dealt with this.
Not dealt with, we only dealt with a notice of motion, and we have not done the work. So I will continue to bring it forward until we agree to do the work.
it's a notice of motion, so,
I'll call another point of order to Madam Chair. Each individual council member does have the ability to simply read in a notice of motion. This is not an opportunity for debate or discussion. So should Councillor Kowalski have a notice of motion, my point of order would be read that into the to the minutes so that it's there. Thank you.
which she just did. So we're good, we will move on. All right, so I'm looking at,
I think Jeff has a comment.
Jeff, I'll look to, oh, comment?
Madam Chair, if you'd like to move to 6D1, Chief Cornforth is here and is able to present that.
Oh, perfect, let's do that. Good morning, Chief Cornforth, are you ready to move ahead? All right, we would like an introduction from Mr. Cross?
Sure, thanks, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We have Chief Cornforth here, and he's going to present a proposed fire response billing policy for the committee's information and discussion. And he'd be pleased to answer any questions committee may have following his presentation. So I'll turn things over to the chief. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cross, and good morning, Deputy Mayor and members of council. Today, I'd like to discuss with you for your consideration. Can I move to next slide? A policy that we'd like to bring forward for your review and questions and discussion today. This is in regards to fire services emergency response billing to incidences within Parkland County, which is something we've been discussing maybe in previous meetings before. And what we'll cover today is what the purpose is, the policy statement and scope, some of the standards, our responsibilities, as well as the residents' responsibilities, some method of appeal process, some sample invoice costs, as well as cost recovery considerations, which are those collateral impacts when we bring these types of policies forward to the public, and review any questions you have. Next slide, please. The intent here is, from an industry standard perspective, our comparator municipalities across Alberta have been billing for services now. Fire services is a preparedness-based cost in the budget. Anytime there's an activation of a response or incident response, that's an additional cost to the operational budget. We have some reserve in that budget which covers the basic costs for some responses, but what you've seen in the last few years is increased costs overall, and these are related to incidences where we're on scene for a long period of time, or we extend a lot of third-party services such as aircraft and cleanup recovery for dangerous goods type product. Next slide, please. So the intent here is that through our bylaw that we introduced last year, we always have had a section in our bylaw from previous history for fees and charges. But what we've introduced now is fees and charges to an extended level of other aspects of our services. And it allows us to recover some of those costs, but not all of those costs are related to each incident. As I mentioned before, we have a preparedness-based cost in our base budget, which is primarily training and having equipment ready to go and respond to incidences. As well as it does deal with the individual who may have caused the incident either through negligent actions or intentional actions where they ignored principles of the bylaw, such as a burning bylaw or discharge of fireworks, or where they've decided to do something which goes contrary to what we would call that normal human behavior. It also covers costs related to motor vehicle collisions, which we've always billed for on the transportation corridors, which are the provincial numbered highways. So we do recover costs in the amount of about $350,000 to $325,000 a year for the responses out on Highway 16. We're looking to extend that onto county roads, and that's covered by your automobile insurance, as well as looking at public assist events where there's human behavior that is contrary to our required municipal bylaws and/or
There's two of you.
okay. So this also covers costs for false fire alarms where we've had continued either end of service life device is failed or a resident keeps activating their emergency system in their home, and we respond out with emergency equipment and find there is no emergency on scene. Next slide, please. So what we're looking to do, as I mentioned, cover costs for motor vehicle collisions and motor vehicle fires. Lots of times we're out on the highway for up to over 2 hours responding to an incident, cleaning up and providing protection for the EMS crews, our RCMP are on scene. This would also cover response to structure fires. Now, you may be thinking in the back of your minds about insurance coverage on your homeowner policy for a fire department response. And that's actually a rider based on your insurance policy. So you may have that, and it may cover up to $14,000 on your insurance. So we've done some research on that. And you can also get insurance coverage for wildland fires on your land. So that is a rider that is available to residents as well. So those are some of the types of calls. We talk about outdoor fires. As I mentioned, we've had a lot of major events where we've been on scene for a long period of time, and some of those are human caused. And by human caused, I mean either through negligent action of burning in high winds and or ignoring our burning bylaw, and we've got a burning ban on and someone goes in and lights a fire, and then barricades their driveway, and within common knowledge, they know it's a burning ban, but they need to get their work done. So that's where we've had a lot of events where we say that is a billable response, and we'll talk about that further up in the presentation. As well as public assists, I mentioned a couple of incidences where we've had either boat recoveries or we've gone to rescue a cat in a tree with emergency response equipment for a cat in a tree and alternative methods to do rescues, as well as people that off-leash their animal in an area that's an on-leash area and the animal goes over the riverbank and then is trapped and the owner goes over to the riverbank to rescue them and then becomes a rescue victim themselves. So we've had several rescues that have occurred in the Prospector Point area, and these are in leashed required areas, and those are expensive and require a very advanced level of training, which we've had to introduce to our operational staff. And I mentioned false alarms. Next slide, please. So the responsibility of managing this policy would rest with the Office of the Fire Chief. That designate would be managing the policy and sending out invoices and tracking those invoices and dealing with the appeals under 1,000, and then appeals would have to, if they're over $1,000 per incident, come to council if the individual so chooses to appeal. That may be an area where council wants further discussion for sure in regards to some of those insurance coverages that are available to residences, as well as some of that tracking and managing for the appeal process. We have a busy council agenda and it requires a lot of time to cover that. What would be the process for that would be part of this discussion today. Next slide, please. Just in the appeal process, I mentioned that they'll file an appeal within 30 days based on the policy, and final decisions under $1,000. So these are typically our false alarms, and we handle those today. We have false alarm fees, and we do sometimes grace someone where there's a problem with their alarm company and the communications, and or it was non-intentional and they have made an effort to stop that false alarm. I mentioned over $1,000 would come to council, and we'll talk about some of those bills potentially that you could see. Next slide, please. These are some of the samples of some of our costs recently. So we've had, and I can tell you a little bit behind the background of each one of those. Wildfire responses for $7,700, where the owner decided they were going to burn during a ban, lit a fire. The fire blew outside of a non-designated burning area into another adjacent lands, and we ended up responding to that. Now that could be our own resources, Parkland County, and or it could be one of our contractors, Yellowhead County, Devon, or Stony Plain. This happened to be a Stony Plain. So that cost gets borne by the tax base for that response for negligent action. The next one is a sample of a structure fire, and this is typically a structure fire where we're able to respond and either contain it to the room of origin or building of origin. And our overall response is up over $11,000. So that rider is available on your home insurance, and we would determine if that is a rider that insurance that resident carried on their insurance policy, and we would decide whether we could bill an invoice for that. The likelihood of collecting would be very limited if someone didn't have that rider on their insurance. It would be a very difficult bill to recover on someone who didn't have that insurance rider. Motor vehicle collision, now this would be on a county roadway where we sent a rescue truck, a fire apparatus, and crew to do either extrication or cleanup of the spilled fluids. That's a typical response for a county roadway collision. As well as the public assist, so this is for a cat in a tree, and this is where we consider what would be a non-emergent response for a wild or domestic or wildlife recovery. We've had animals down septic systems, horses in pools, cats in trees, cats in furnace ducts. These are things where we're sending an emergent response, tying up emergency equipment for an incident for what we would deem as non-emergent service. Another public assist call, as I mentioned, is that rope rescue, where we've got someone who's gone to a walk in one of our lovely parks, and they've unleashed their dog and they've got themselves into trouble either on ice, and the dog's gone out onto the ice chasing duck and or over the ledge at the river, and we've had to go out and rescue them. And lots of times these occur in the afternoons or late evenings where crews are working operationally in poor conditions. So many of our insurance companies in the area have been very interested, and we do get lots of calls from our brokerages asking questions whether residents should carry a rider on wildfire protection if there's wildfire in their lands, as well as within structure fire protection for their homes if they have a structure fire. Would they receive a bill? And in our region around us, we have other counties, and as I've put in an attachment with this council package, some of those charges for other municipalities that they are charging. One of the things I do need to say is we need to be mindful that there are some collateral impacts for what happens if we do start billing. Next slide, please. So cost recovery considerations, and this takes energy to manage collections. As in all my service years with the fire and EMS services, managing any collections or recovery for costs, either ambulance services or fire services, takes actually a person to follow up, collect the information, and then track that. Many departments have looked at third-party companies through their procurement services where they hire a company that does these collections, and they share a cost recovery with those individuals, which seems to work quite well. I know that Sturgeon County uses a company as well as another county as a third-party collections company. We actually do that through transportation utilities. They use a third-party recovery company for those highway incidences. Any additional attempt for us to focus on that ourselves would require additional staff resources over and above what we are currently operating with today. We will also have to work very closely with our communications team and let public know what is potentially the future for fire services. This is something that's very hot of topic, if you will, today, is any services and fees and charges are very relevant to folks that receive those high-end bills, if you will. As well as the unfavorable feedback, this is not to be considered as a revenue stream to operate the fire department. We're at about a $6.3 million budget, and any attempts to focus on this as a revenue stream to offset that shouldn't be the intention of the policy. It's really to manage and minimize overall operating costs where there is either negligent or common sense behavior that should have been more front of mind. People burning during a ban that should check the ban website to make sure that they're not burning, and or negligently acting in high wind conditions where they start a wildfire that impacts overall county operational costs. There may be a receiving of a ticket, if you will, from our enforcement team. So fire does not enforce the fire bylaw rules of permits and regulations. That's managed by enforcement team. So they could receive a fine as well as a bill for the services. And this is really to deter that behavior where we need folks to take a second thought before they light a fire or they do an action that could start a fire, like grinding or what we call hot works in the field when it's fall or early spring fire season. And then the other negative impact, which we've been concerned with in the fire services leaders, is that public may try to manage incidences on their own lands before they call us because they're worried about that bill. And that needs to be a discussion, I think, here at this table today. So I'll turn it over and answer any questions and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Cornforth, for that. It's thoughtful for sure. I'm going to look to Councillor Wiedemann to put the motion on the floor, please.
Yeah, that the fire response billing policy presentation be received for information as presented. Just a couple questions on the structure fire charges. I didn't quite get all the information that you presented there. Are we charging for structure fires right now for response?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Wiedemann, no, we are not charging for structure fires today.
I'm not sure we need to go there. Nobody starts, usually they don't start a structure fire on purpose. You mentioned a rider and that not everybody has that rider. So we're adding another cost to insurance, which is already very high and people are having a hard time affording insurance as it is. You know, I'm not sure we need to go there with structure fires. The rest of it, I don't care so much about. It looks like it's reasonable. Are you suggesting that we also hire somebody else to start collecting these bills, or are we set with the staff that we have?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Wiedemann, on the first part of that question, those riders are available and they're actually quite competitive. We did some research with some of our insurers, and that isn't necessarily a higher increase on costs. So some of those are already included in your home insurance, which you don't know about. And you don't know about it because you haven't received that bill. So that is actually there already. And my recommendation today would be that we use a third party to do the collections, because we would be adding staff costs in the next operational budget to do this. There's quite a bit of work behind collections on any type, and this would be work over and above what we already do today with Alberta Transportation Utilities. Thank you.
So would the collections be a percentage of the collection and no charge for the actual collection part of it? So really there's no cost to the county other than you give up some of your rates?
That's correct. It's split between some of the recovery costs. So it depends. We'd have to go through our procurement services to acquire that, that provision of service, and then we would negotiate on what those rates would look like.
All right, looking to council for questions. Councillor Kowalski, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Cornforth, for coming. Just a scenario, if I may, because we are a very complex municipality. We have villages or hamlets and large country residential areas, and then we have open land. So if, I'll just use my neighborhood, we have a lot of ESAs with long grass, municipal reserves with long grass. We have lots of kids that think matches are a lot of fun. So what would happen in a scenario if a couple of young kids start a fire and they take out 6 houses in countryside ravines? How would you apply the structure fire process to all of those? And we lost maybe half the houses. That's not fair to say so.
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Kowalski. So first off, the fire investigation would have to determine the origin of that fire. And that may involve criminal charges, so that goes in a different court, if you will. For recovery of costs, it would depend on what our energy and efforts were for those individual structures. So as I mentioned earlier, that rider is on many of the policies today. We would evaluate with each homeowner what that if that rider is available, and work with them to send that invoice to the appropriate insurance agency. So, you know, unfortunate event, it could happen, but we would work with those homeowners and their insurers to determine whether we could send that bill onward to those insurers.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Just a clarification? All right, quickly.
So are you saying you wouldn't bill if they didn't have that rider?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Wiedemann, no, that is how the policy is focused is that if there isn't a rider and they don't have that insurance, the likelihood of collections would not be rated high of recovery. So we would work with the insurers on those structure fires. If you didn't have that rider, then we would be trying to submit a bill to someone who probably didn't have the means to pay the insurance they needed, or some property that's are non-insured. So there are buildings that are outbuildings that may be not insured by a policy. We wouldn't send that $14,000 bill to them.
Mayor Gamble, did you have a comment?
Thank you. My comments relate to, I think one of the themes of council lately has been the mitigation of risk, and I believe this is a step forward in Parkland County, another example of us being proactive and looking at opportunities that we can identify areas where we determine that there's negligence and we expect accountability, and I think that's exactly what you've done. I like the approach of looking at other municipalities and taking best practice and putting that in the overall scope of fire services within Parkland County, and fully support that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Kuchar-Johnson.
I just have a couple of questions. So we didn't have any charges before, is that what I am to understand? And if we did, what did we change this time around?
Through the chair, or through the deputy mayor to Councillor Kuchar-Johnson, yes, we did charge. So actually, we charged for false alarms as well as water rescues. And in my history, we haven't billed for structure fires, but we did have the ability to do that. Again, we're just realigning what two comparative municipalities have done, and the direction, as the mayor said, to help with that risk management on those major wildfires that are human-caused through negligent actions. Thank you.
Just for clarification, so we never used to charge for, say, a cat in a tree or rescues of the dogs and all that?
Through the deputy mayor to Councillor Kuchar-Johnson, no, we did not bill for a cat in a tree. We did bill for, as I mentioned, that public service water rescue call, but that was a limitation of it.
Councillor Kubasiak, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate different approaches to dealing with fire, given our climate changes. And I think, I support the motion here today. I think people's mindset is shifting when many, many people have been affected by family members who have been had harm and had risk and losses because of fire. So I think the mindset's there, and I'm just looking forward to a proper engagement and a proper communication process to keep people up to date on what's happening and how we're changing in Parkland County, basically how we're trying to protect our community with these extremes and weather conditions. So certainly support the effort that's being made here. Thank you.
And I'll just make some comments too. I think as a municipality, it is incumbent on us to try to cover these costs where we can, otherwise it goes directly to our ratepayers. So with that, I would like to see an education campaign to let our residents know that this is what is going to be coming into effect, and that maybe you need to check the riders on your insurance so that you know. That would be my suggestion. I do agree that we need to do something here. We cannot bear the cost of all of this, so. With that, I will look if there's any other comments or questions, and I will call the question. All in favor? All right, the motion is carried. Thank you, Chief Cornforth. I look forward to seeing the future information. So it is now 9:29. Look at us on time and everything. So I will move back to our appointment with the Parkland Library Board. So welcome, ladies. Please come up, and I will look to Mr. Cross for an introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pleased to welcome members of our Parkland Municipal Library Board here with us this morning. We have Ms. Kathy Gardner, who's the manager, Cheryl Budzinski, who's board treasurer, and Ms. Sarah Latetta, who's the board chair. And they're here to provide their annual update for committee, as well as present their 2025 budget for council's information, and be pleased to answer any questions that council may have. So welcome, ladies.
Okay. Thank you, ladies. Welcome. You look lovely and shiny this morning. And I have to say that we have read through your report. I'm always very impressed with how hard you work, and I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation. So please go ahead. Yep, just press the button.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. I like seeing all the jerseys. Excited for tonight. Before we get started, I want to say on behalf of myself and several other board members with the Parkland County Library Board that we really enjoyed last week's dinner, appreciation dinner. And we talked about the potato salad quite a bit. The warm potato salad. It was crazy, crazy good.
German is warm potato salad.
Yeah, it was really good. And the little gift, thank you. It was very nice. We enjoyed it. So we've had another very successful year, the Parkland County Libraries. And one of the things I kind of want to address before I hand things off to Kathy is that last year we applied for and received a pretty hefty grant. Kathy is amazing at applying for grants and getting people to give us money. And it's allowed us to offer some really unique programming. And she's going to talk about that and how successful it's been and some of the stories around it. And also in 2025, so next year, we will be starting a new plan of service. It will be a full year, reviewing, changing things. We are looking at how we can better service Division 1 and 2 of the county, and some plans and ideas we have to get creative in our way of thinking, step outside the box a little bit, and dream a little bit, and see what we can do to keep offering our excellent service all throughout the county. And with that, I'm going to hand things off to Kathy.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So today we just want to highlight some of the activities that we have done in this past year at our libraries, and more specifically how libraries are supporting mental health and community connections. So I just want to start off with a quote. This is from the Journal of Library and Administration, September 2021. Public libraries, and more directly, library staff, contribute significantly to the mental health of their patrons, becoming indispensable resources for emotional well-being. And then now I just have a video I would like to show, just to kind of start us off. Oh, maybe it won't. Sorry, I think I need to press play here.
Hello, I'm Kathy Gardner, and I'm delighted today to be showing you all about Parkland County Libraries.
Yeah, is that a board meeting?
Hey everyone, Lachlan Monroe here. This is a huge shout out to Parkland County Libraries out there in beautiful Alberta, Canada. I love Alberta. I've shot many things in the province of Alberta, and my experiences have always been amazing. Parkland County Libraries, get out there, check them out. Lots of great reads. The staff is amazing, and yeah, support. Love it. Cheers, everyone.
So thank you. That's just us experimenting with different forms of media and advertising. Let's go back to the presentation. Sorry. Thank you. So if we can move, to the next slide. Perfect. We know that daily our libraries are interacting with people, and some of those people often have stresses or dealing with crises. So the library is a place that they go to and we're a sounding board for them. So whether it's to do with job searching, finances, banking, taxes, to people who are sick or dealing with things, having the library be able to support people in these difficult times is a special side of libraries and not always something that people attribute a library to. But more and more staff are playing a pivotal role in providing a trusted and comfortable space for individuals to navigate their crises and connect with necessary resources. So resources such as our library collections are saving people money, they're saving people time. People are not faced with any obligations or financial barriers when they enter a library. Most everything we offer is for free. People also come to our library specifically to meet their neighbors or to meet with friends. And then we're also bringing people together with some of the programming that we're offering, and multi-generational programming as well, so bringing families together. But then there's just kind of another little piece to this, that it's more about people needing that sense of belonging. And so when there's no other options maybe available in some communities or no other activities to do, then the library is it. So maybe the next slide. Thank you. So in hearing from people, certainly after last year with the wildfires, or maybe even still post-pandemic, we have provided a wide variety of programming that's supporting people's mental well-being. And so we've hosted Adventures in Aging seniors conferences, stress and resilience workshops, end-of-life support classes, and digital literacy training. So all of these are providing a wealth of information and knowledge, while also fostering social connections and then offering that sense of well-being and sense of belonging that people are looking for. So the next slide, please. So Mindful Mondays is just one example of a program that we're offering at the Entwistle Public Library. And this program is being made possible by our partners at TriCALA, so the Tri-Community Adult Learning Association. So it started out as a one-day program acknowledging the financial strains of January 15th, known as Blue Monday, has now become an every 2-week program at the library. So I just have a letter here that I just want to read part of from someone who attends the Mindful Monday program. So, dear Kathy, thank you for your Mindful Monday program that you offer at the Entwistle Library, as it is amazing. And then they go on to say, through guided meditation, I have been able to relax my body and mind to help reduce any stresses that I am currently experiencing. Connecting with like-minded individuals who want to explore a variety of methods that assist in becoming our better selves has been truly a blessing. And furthermore to the Mindful Monday, it has expanded to laughing yoga, to memory booster programs, and even the creation of mental health kits that people can sign out with their library card and continue with mindfulness and relaxation methods at home. So I have one here today just to show you an example. So it comes with a cushion and this singing bowl to kind of get you in the relaxation mode. And so they'll use these kits as part of the program, and then people are able to sign them out too. And this was all thanks to Tricala, who created these for us. And they're available at every one of our public libraries. So then the next slide. And of course, we want to offer a balance, so we like seeing smiles on people's faces. We submitted an application for the Minister's Award of Excellence for our uplifting programs this past year. So we'll hear later on if we were successful with that. But from kitten cuddle story time to foam parties, we're seeing crowds of people ages 0 to 90, from all over the county and traveling to different parts. And we're having lots of fun doing that. With the kitten cuddle, that was kind of fun. Patrons could adopt a kitten at the end of the program. So, and the next slide. And we're able to, with thanks for the county vehicle, the use of the fleet vehicle, we're able to bring our uplifting programs throughout all of Parkland County. So last year we visited Bunchberry Meadows, Graminia, Glowing Embers. So it is another way of serving all of the Parkland County, and we'll look forward to doing that this summer too. And meeting people where they're at, actually physically, also reduces many barriers and fosters some really interesting and welcoming interactions. So this is a positive thing too. So next slide. And then, of course, our partners. So Parkland County, so thank you to all the different departments that support us daily. But also just wanting to acknowledge the Digital Literacy Exchange Program funding. So this is in a joint grant that we received with Tricala, so the Tri-Community Adult Association. And this is for delivering digital literacy classes throughout Parkland County and Spruce and Stony as well. And it's kind of fitting to be talking about the digital literacy with our topic today on mental health, as sometimes technology can be everyone's biggest stress. So technology keeps progressing, progressing at a rapid rate. Our residents sometimes are being faced with, some obstacles. So it's not even necessarily being able to use the technology. It's sometimes just being able to navigate the unpredictability of it, or certain worlds that we're faced with. So some online government forms still need to be faxed, while others you can submit online, and then still others need to be in a secure web portal, so then it requires an email and a password. And then it gets verified through a text or something. So, we're learning right with our patrons. And so, we're navigating this and trying to figure it out together. And I think that's kind of the piece to here that, we take the time for that, and residents just know that we got them, and that we're that trusted place for them to go. Next slide, please. And then here's just our annual report for 2023. So we submit this to the province annually in February every year. So we're trending upwards, which is nice to see. So we're surpassing our 2019 numbers. Just so a reminder that, of course, now we have Wabamun with us, so our numbers now include that community and those activities. And also something to note here too, that you know, we do not require a library card or a membership to be accessing like any of the programs that we highlighted maybe here today, or any of the technology help that we're doing or use of our computers. So that library membership really only comes into play when you're actually borrowing materials. So, you know, we like to look at the visits through the doors or, you know, our technology and our program and outreach attendance as well. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, that's a tough act to follow because I'm going to talk about numbers. So sorry. I just have a few things to mention on the rolling budget. I'm sure you've all seen it. We increased by 3% for the coming years for our revenue that we will be expecting from the county. But in 2028, we didn't. We just thought that, you know, we were just increasing on the increase. So we left that one just the same as 2027. The big thing that I would like to talk about is the 3.5% increase that we gave the staff. And they also have benefits, which we had talked about for many years, but finally decided 2 years ago that we would implement it. So any of the staff that work more than 24 hours a week, they would be able to have the benefit package. And also the LAPP pension. That was very exciting for the staff because for quite a while, I dug my heels in and said, no, they can have Quick Card. Well, you know what Quick Card's like. You get $1,200 a year, and what does that do? Maybe two visits to the dentist and you're done. So they were very excited about having this benefit, and especially the pension package. So and the one other thing I would like to point out is when you look at the budget and you look at the professional librarian, it includes Kathy as the director, but also Lorena as the community service manager. We went around a bit with that, trying to figure out how we would break Lorena out into small pieces to the outlet libraries, but that didn't work. So then we decided to put it under the professional librarian. And I don't think I had much else to, I guess I just want to talk about the partner libraries. So we, you know, what we get from the county seems like a large amount of money, but $326,000 of that is what we give to our partner libraries. So that is something, that is the total we give to the partner libraries. What comes from the county money is about $236,000. So really, when you look at that, we are not using the whole amount of the revenue to run our libraries. We are also helping out the partner libraries.
All right, well, thank you, ladies. That's never, ever short of very, very impressive. And I'll have more comments, but I will look to Councillor Kuchar-Johnson as she sits on this board to put the motion forward, please.
That the Parkland County Library Board update be received for as information as presented. I just want to say thank you, ladies, for coming in. I think that probably this presentation shows that libraries are so much more than just books. And I can say that when I used to use the library a lot, it was for mental health as well. You just go in there, you get a break with your kids, they get distracted, and you get a break. And it was always included in my weekly trips to Spruce Grove or wherever I was going, Devon. So I thank you very much for that. And it's also exciting to me that we're going to explore some ideas about getting some programs and programming over in the eastern part of this county. Thank you.
All right, other comments? Councillor Kubasiak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's good to see so many members of the library board attending here today. Thank you. Appreciate the annual update. If you could just comment on the the number of people who walk through the doors. The number, there's always been some discussion about that number, almost 15,698. And is that people coming into the library and people, when they're leaving, you're tracking them as well? Can you just talk about, so every time someone comes in, they're tracked? I have a supplementary question.
Yeah, that's right. So we do not have a people counter, so we are manually tracking that daily. And it is coming through our doors. So we don't count them when they leave, but we count people when they come in. So some people, if they leave and return, would be counted twice or a couple times throughout a day. But it doesn't include staff or like workers. So we do feel like they're true visits to our library. And then, and then of course the library, like the circulation number is tracked through our cataloging system, but they would have to come to the desk and transact at the desk with their library card. So that's where the circulation number comes from.
Thank you for that clarification. Just in the comments, you mentioned that, Cheryl, you talked about the budget to 1.1 million and how much 300,000+ of that goes to share with regional partners. So appreciate that background. And Sarah, you also talked about something that's interesting about the increasing, the change in plan of health services for libraries. And there was a time I valued my library card as a child. That was really important to me. I lived in Edmonton and my library card was really important, as it was to many, many kids. Have you done a survey of age groups, of users who's coming into your library? I know through the school board, we had done that a number of years ago, tracking who's accessing. And also, I wondered if your board has had some discussion. You're focusing on mental health, you're focusing on importance of service in the community, which is valuable. I see FCSS programming, I see mental health programming, I see recreation programming, I see other agencies that deliver similar service, and I wonder if in your discussions you've touched on how you're touching so many areas of social interaction, mental health in our community. If you could just comment on that, because it is shifting. You talk about a change in plan and how you're delivering services to the community. I think that's an important thing that needs to be on the table.
Yeah, exactly. Kathy touched on it a little bit. It comes up a lot in our board conversations, and I know it comes up a lot at just the individual libraries, because we do have some fantastic partnerships, and a lot of the grants we apply for are not just us. It usually is in conjunction with a partner. When Kathy lifted up the little bag that people could check out, that's from Tricalis. So a lot of times we're working with our partners together. This came up a lot also like during the fires, when we had to really have as much resources on hand as possible, because there were so many different things that people could apply for, so many different, lots of confusion. And so bringing as many of the partners together can achieve the task, first of all, a lot more economically. All dollars, are being really focused right now. Like this last year, a lot of that was on mental health. That will continue forward, and we're always looking for those partners, whether it's at a symposium. We did a conference in Tomahawk. Was that last week? Yeah, 2 weeks ago, for our senior community members, which was hugely successful, and that takes other partners or collaboration with other places. So I think it's a fantastic fit, and yes, it will be part of the plan of service that's coming up in 2025 that we'll be working on, how to improve that even more and how to utilize those relationships to where we can get the best service to as many people as possible. That plan of service, you were talking about like the surveys and things like that. It's very robust, and there will be a lot of surveys all across age groups. Out of each library, but then also not just with our patrons, but we're going to try to get to as many people as possible who aren't our patrons and get as much feedback as we can. And we will be doing that across the board for all divisions, not just be focused on one end of the county, but all across, because we realize we don't have libraries in Division 1 or 2, but we do offer the bookmobile and different services. So we're trying to get as much input as possible. So in our 2026 presentation, you will get a lot of that kind of information, what those surveys kind of fed back to us.
All right, thank you for that. Councillor Kowalski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Cheryl, Kathy, and Cheryl, and to other two guests as well. Councillor Kubasik, I attended the crime prevention workshop earlier, about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and the closing session that really stopped me in my tracks was child luring through the internet. And they had some very, very important things to say about roadblocks and Minecraft and how young children are being lured. So I'm wondering if that might be a partnership that you might look at with the RCMP, if you're not already doing it in the library, because I explained it to my grandson who turned 10, because I'm really careful, because I can understand why you don't start the conversation. And he's looked at me and he says, oh, I get it. So if you like have hundreds of people that are your friends, you don't know who they really are. So he got it. It was not easy, like I'm not a teacher, but I do it. And so I think that's a really interesting partnership that you might, if you haven't done it, to explore, is because you actually have the children in the library using literacy. So it's kind of a great place for them to know who you're with online. Just food for thought.
Yeah, thank you. And we have just recently utilized Constable Gord has come out and done some of those awareness sessions. So, but yeah, it's right. It's so important. So it's something that we definitely want to continue offering.
And I'll make some comments. Yeah, difficult conversations, much like drugs with kids, but ones that need to be talked about. So I just want to note that you certainly have had your challenges through not just the pandemic, but then through the fires. And I've watched each time you come to council and you grow and you come up with new ideas. And I am always amazed you have no lack of creativity or tenacity. I commend all of you for what you've done. You've not only demonstrated this through your programs, but you've run successful programs. You've become successful with it. So again, my hat's off to you. I can't think of a more deserving group that should have that Minister's Award of Excellence. I certainly hope that you get it and would love to hear about it. So, and just a quick note, you spoke of evolving tech in the library and how you teach it. I'm going to tell you a quick story about digressing tech. My husband is awaiting surgery right now, so we have to get all kinds of tests for him. And one of the medical labs gave us his test results on a disc. And I looked at it and I went, I have no clue what to do with this. There is no discs, as the woman argued with me and said, well, you just put it in the computer. And I said, there's not a computer around these days that it's even you can use them at. So I'm wondering if you also take that into consideration and maybe have an old disc player or a VCR player hanging around just for the odd occasion that somebody might come in and go, hey, you know what we had to go to the store and buy a disc player so that we could load this and, transfer it onto our computer. So that was kind of interesting as well. So, but thank you again very much.
Can I just add one thing to that?
Yeah, please.
One of the things I love about going to the library, we're talking about technology, and there's always a lot of emphasis on technology, but the Entwistle Library has done some programming with the school this year, and so I've gone down a couple times on Fridays with the school kids, and what I love is the fact that there is no technology happening, that this is good old-fashioned learning and fun the way it used to be, and they're not on computers and they're not on devices, and they're having a different type of experience at the libraries. Also, in regards to what you're saying is, yes, this is a very needed thing. We had a movie that needed to be shown at the library, and we got the DVD, and we all looked around because we're like, well, we don't have any DVD players anymore. Like, so we went and bought one and hooked it up to the computer, and it kind of the same old thing, you know, where it's like, okay, we've moved way ahead, and but every once in a while, yeah, you need some of those old devices.
Note to self, you're the
Yeah.
library,
Yeah.
right? You need to keep those because we're counting on you.
We need a little tech museum.
Right, yes. All right, with that, are there any other comments? I look to council. Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? All right, the motion is carried. Ladies, thank you for your great work, and we look forward to next year's presentation as well. All right, so we are right on time, 10 o'clock. We look to the Clifford E. Lee Nature Sanctuary, the boardwalk presentation, and I will look to administration again. Oh,
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Our 10 o'clock appointment isn't here yet.
all right.
So we can move to communications, or we can take a quick break.
Why don't we take a quick break? Let's go to 10:15. Does that sound all right? All right, we'll come back. We will recess for now, and we will come back at 10:15. Thank you. We can hear you, but we need you to use the mic so those online can hear you as well. So, well, thank you and welcome, Mr. Heaven. It's an honor to have you here today, and I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, and thanks for the introduction, Dave, and appreciate the time this morning.
Oh, just push the button in front of you. Yeah, there you go. You're on.
I am tech savvy, believe it or not. You never know. So thank you for the opportunity to join you this morning and to share the story of Clifford E. Lee here. For context, I am the provincial manager for Ducks Unlimited Canada in Alberta, making me the senior team member, with the exception of our national director of HR, who also happens to reside in Alberta. If we could advance to the next slide, please. Quick history on Clifford E. Lee. The sanctuary was established in 1978. It was a collaboration between the Clifford E. Lee Foundation and Canadian Nature Federation. Clifford E. Lee was actually an entrepreneur from Alberta who did very well in the province, and as a result of that, when he sold when his company went public, chose to make a significant investment in the foundation. One of their first projects being the Clifford E. Lee Nature Sanctuary here in Parkland County. In 1982, they transferred the sanctuary in its entirety to the Canadian Nature Federation, which subsequently became Nature Canada. At some point, Nature Canada decided it did not want to be a landowner and sought somebody to take on ownership of the sanctuary, which is how Ducks Unlimited Canada ended up with the project. At the same time, they donated a conservation easement on the lands to Nature Conservancy of Canada. So bit by bit, there are a number of properties added to the Clifford E. Lee, and it ended up at about 344 acres that it represents today. The sanctuary, that last bullet there, the sanctuary does host the longest boardwalk of its kind in the Edmonton area. It's pretty unique, and it's exceptionally well used. We've got thousands of visitors going to the sanctuary annually. Next slide, please. That gives you a rough idea of where the sanctuary is located. It's across Highway 60 from the University of Alberta Botanic Garden. Not far from Devon, not far from Edmonton, not far from Spruce Grove and Stony Plain. So as you might imagine, it gets, as I said earlier, a lot of visitors. Next slide, please. That's a close-up representation of the sanctuary, and I think the key piece that I'd like you to focus on there is the boardwalk. So obviously the black lines there. There are 3 viewing platforms built into the boardwalk on that north side. You can see where the boardwalk kind of juts out. There's 2 locations quite visible that extend into the wetland itself, and then there's a 3rd viewing platform at the terminus on the northwest corner there. Maybe I'll leave it there for now and talk about it a bit more later on. Next slide, please. So we have a group of local landowners that is incredibly passionate about the Clifford E. Lee Nature Sanctuary. They look after it. They spend a lot of time out there. They're incredible stewards. From time to time when I visit, I notice something wrong. It's easier for me to connect with the society than it is with my own team because they live right there. So there might be some loose nails or a board that's come off. I can simply send an email and that issue is dealt with almost immediately. They address things like porta potties, waste receptacles. They're out there all the time. They're talking to visitors, reminding them to please not feed the birds, although they're not necessarily terribly successful in that regard. They do try. So they're just a great group that has really embraced the sanctuary, that sees it as their own, and they've been exceptional partners to Ducks Unlimited Canada in terms of maintaining that site and acting as ambassadors for the site to the public. We deal with the more significant infrastructure needs through our Continuing Habitat Operations Program Operations, or CHIPO as we call it, CHIPO Fund. And that's why I'm here today, is our CHIPO Fund is what keeps our infrastructure going across the country. It is quite limited. in terms of the dollar amounts that are actually held within that fund. And it has a broad spectrum of accountabilities associated with it, meaning it doesn't necessarily have the capability or capacity to look after something like of the magnitude that we're dealing with at Clifford Ely. The other piece that is challenging for us is that our grants and our grantors, our funders, are primarily interested in supporting new conservation projects. So the work that Ducks Unlimited Canada does across the country, the work that it does here in Alberta, is focused on conservation of new lands. And for want of a better word, that's what is sexy to our funders. That's what they want to support, is the new stuff. They're not terribly interested in the existing stuff, and that represents a significant challenge for us. And as I said earlier, the boardwalk concept is not something that we would typically do as an organization. All of our projects across the country are publicly accessible. But typically we make every effort to maintain them in a natural state or near natural state. So we don't build boardwalks. This project is unique in that it was donated to us with the boardwalk already in place. Next slide, please. So the boardwalk runs parallel to the southwest margin of the wetland. I mentioned the 2 viewpoints and the third in the bush. Currently, the state of the boardwalk requires that we need to replace it in its entirety. It was constructed in the 1980s. It was well built for its time. It was robust. It has withstood the tests of time, but it was built with nails. Unlike what we would do today in terms of using screws, for example, it has no handrails. I've got a picture coming up, but essentially it's open on either side. It is raised, so it does represent a risk, and it's something that we need to deal with. It's not aligned with current construction codes. We've removed sections of boardwalk, connecting the 2 viewing platforms to the main boardwalk simply because of the safety hazard that those viewing platforms represent. I was on them last year with my family, and 4 people standing on one viewing platform actually caused it to move. It was tilting in all directions, made me quite uncomfortable. It's not sort of a scenario that I would want to see the public exposed to. So we took out those intervening sections of boardwalk, and what we're finding is people are now trying to bridge those missing sections of boardwalk with odds and sods. It's a little concerning. Next slide, please. So that's the visual of the sort of the overhead of the Clifford Ely Sanctuary, and those 2 viewing platforms at the top are the ones that we've disconnected from the main boardwalk. Next slide, please. So this was our first attempt to keep people off. As you might imagine, people don't respect flagging tape. They just went beyond that. It wasn't working. So we gave up on that. Next slide, please. And we went to this solution, and I'll draw your attention to a few facts here. Yes, they've tried to bridge it. No, you're not going to cross on those little birch remnants or reeds or whatever they've tried to use to make that passable. But you can already see, the legs on the platform on the 4 corners. They're just steel posts dropped into the wetland bottom. Not ideal. And there's already been you can see those little sections of lighter colored 2x4 at the bottom of the platform, right there, yep. Those are an attempt to reconnect the platform back to the main boardwalk. So it's actually disconnected, and as a result, it was swaying quite significantly. So that was an effort to try to minimize that sway. And then we've also got those cross members on either side trying to, those ones. Trying to reconnect, provide some stability. So I guess that worked for a while, but we're at a point now where it's no longer going to work. Next slide, please. And that gives you a sense of the roller coaster that the boardwalk, roller coaster state that the boardwalk is currently in. It's pretty uneven, sort of a rolling nature to it, and there's actually, you can't see it terribly well in that picture, but there are nails sticking out. The other thing to note there is the amazing wildlife diversity. We've got a duck sitting right on the boardwalk. They're quite comfortable there. They feel safe. They do know that people are feeding them, so that certainly helps. But it's a great sort of piece of nature not far from urban development, readily accessible. I would venture to say wheelchair accessible if it were in a better state. Certainly strollers can get around, and people love this place to bits. One other thing I'll note here is when we go to construct the new boardwalk, everything will be identical to what is currently there with the exception of a pond dipping platform. So the plan is to actually install a platform adjacent to the boardwalk here with a ramp going up to the boardwalk so that kids can get down and closer to the water and do what they like to do with their nets. And we can facilitate school groups and other educational opportunities as a result. Next slide, please. So we've designed a replacement boardwalk with the help of a consulting firm. We've adjusted the boardwalk slightly, so we're going from 1.5 meter width to 1.8. We're putting handrails on it to get it aligned with current construction code. I mentioned the viewing platform, the pond dipping platform, but we're also increasing the size of the viewing platform. So they're currently 4.5 by 4.5 meters. We're taking that up to 5 by 5 meters. We're putting, obviously we're going to put new supports on those platforms. We're looking at screw piles to give it good, solid, robust stability for folks to use those, both the boardwalks and the viewing platforms safely. We're looking at a phased approach. So this went to our board 2 weeks ago for approval. And what we've put in front of the board is sort of a three-phased approach. Phase one is removal of the infrastructure in its entirety. Right now, I am not comfortable with the state of the infrastructure. I am concerned about the safety, and I want to ensure that we're not putting anybody at risk. So my top priority is to get that infrastructure out of there. Unfortunately, financially, we're not in a state to move to phase two immediately. We need to do a round of fundraising to be able to pay for the materials and installation of a new boardwalk. So we have to find project donors, project sponsors to make that happen. And then phase three we'll be constructing during winter of 25 and 26 during frozen ground conditions. The reason we do that is A, it's much easier to get equipment in there, and B, more importantly, we're minimizing our environmental impact by doing it during those frozen conditions. So we're looking at an overall cost of somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million to put in that new boardwalk. Next slide, please. This is just to give you a sense of the new design. Obviously, we've got the viewing platform in the middle there with the screw piles that I mentioned. Currently, it's sitting on 4 posts. As you can see there, we'll be looking at 12 screw piles to support one viewing platform. The viewing platforms themselves and the boardwalk will have the handrails you can see there. On the right-hand side, we've got the pond dipping platform with 2 access points. 2 points for the simple reason of getting, ensuring that they're accessible. So that top access point is for those in wheelchairs, strollers, et cetera. So they've got a longer sort of approach, and then that midway access point is for everyone else if they want to get down quicker. And then on the left, we've got an indication of the, we're putting in sort of concrete, the word for it comes up in the next slide. I've forgotten what they're called, but basically a concrete approach or base to minimize erosion of the trail prior to the point where it reaches the boardwalk. Next slide, please. Abutment, that's what I was looking for. So some of you may be familiar with this. It was the same design firm that did this project. This is the White Spruce Forest, just on the outskirts of St. Albert along the Sturgeon River. I actually grew up playing in this forest and seeking out birds' nests and so on and so forth, but they've done an absolutely beautiful job of installing the boardwalks there and making those wetlands accessible and minimizing impact from pedestrians going through there and cyclists and whatnot. You can see the concrete abutment that I was talking about. And again, the point there is just to minimize trail erosion and damage as folks approach the boardwalk. Next slide. So I spoke about our CHIPO fund. That's our continuing habitat project operations. We can pull about $300,000 to $500,000 from there, so it's a good start for us. Maisha Crane seems very interested in participating in one way or another. They've also agreed to lobby some of their peers in the business community of Parkland County. They mentioned Spruceland Lumber, so hopefully they have some success there. I lied on the next bullet point simply because I thought I'd have more time to get this done before I came to talk to you folks, but my intent is to talk to Town of Devon, Stony Plain, and the City of Spruce Grove to assess their interest as well. I've reached out twice to the MLA for Drayton Valley Devon, Andrew Boychenko, and I think Sally, you spoke to him as well. So far, I've not had any response, but I remain optimistic that they'll be reaching out. And we've also compiled a list of potential sponsors and donors in Acheson Industrial Park. So my team is exclusively responsible for conservation programs on the ground in Alberta. So I've got about 35 staff across Alberta that deliver conservation. We don't do fundraising. We don't do the dinners that you associated with Ducks Unlimited Canada. We don't do the paintings at Home Depot. We do conservation work. We have staff nationally that are our development staff that do the fundraising sponsorship stuff. And they're the ones reaching out to the companies in Acheson. And I understand we're also looking to develop a relationship with Amazon. And certainly their proximity, or the proximity of their warehouse in Acheson, hopefully has some bearing on their interest as well. So I think that's it for my presentation.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Hebben. I appreciate that. Always in support of anything that Ducks Unlimited can do. And I'm going to look to Councillor Kowalski to put the motion on the table, if you will. I know.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That the Clifford E. Lee Boardwalk presentation received for information as presented. And if, may I?
Yep, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hutton, for coming. It is an incredibly beautiful area. I kind of think about the one at Devon where they took out, at the Devonian, and they took out all their wood walkways and they put these metal ones that you can see through. They're a little nerve-wracking to me, but they make sense because they're going to last a lot longer. And so what is it you're hoping the county might provide? Do you have something in mind? The information is really beneficial, but is there something that you're hoping the county will look at?
I think my ask, I guess, is twofold. Sorry. I think the ask from Ducks Unlimited Canada is twofold on this particular project. One is to whatever extent or level of partnership could be pursued, whatever that looks like, whether it's in terms of reaching out to the broader business community within Parkland County, whether it's reaching out to peers at Stony Plain, Spruce Grove, Devon, and encouraging contributions at that level. And then obviously the second piece to that is going to be financial. So as I mentioned, we are limited. I know there's a sense that for whatever reason, there's a sense out there that Ducks Unlimited Canada has very deep pockets and should be able to pay for stuff like this itself. As I said, the nature of the project is such that it doesn't necessarily align with our mission and our mandate. It is something that we've inherited and something that we value as an opportunity for the public to get out and appreciate and enjoy and learn from. And I think in that vein, it's something that we can collectively support and be proud of. And I've noted at least twice the Clifford E. Lee has shown up in my parkland, which actually is what caused me to reach out to the county. I am a resident in Councillor Kowaziak's division. So that's the other part. Is the financial contribution. Is if there's opportunity there, if there's interest, if there's value at the municipal level, and I think there is, I would like to encourage participation in the project.
Go ahead.
Do you have any sense of how the visitations, the number of visitors, where they're coming from? Have you any sense of that, or have you been able to gather any information like that?
I'm smiling because I asked that same question of our stewardship group on the project, and we have not made an effort to track at this point in time. I do know that via the website, when there are concerns raised, they come from all over. They come from Edmonton, they come from the smaller municipalities here, and they come from the county as well. So I suspect we're seeing representation or public use from all of those areas.
Councillor Kuchar-Johnson.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that I'm extremely proud of the Clifford E. Lee Sanctuary in my division, and it is really the jewel of that area. So it's no wonder that it's been in our pamphlet more than once. I guess my only concern is I know that that parking lot has a constant rotation. You park in there, you back out, somebody else is there to fill your spot. And it looks like we're ripping it down this summer, and then we have to wait quite a while. I'm concerned that maybe people will walk in there and look around and maybe cause some damage to nests and so forth. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I guess we can only do what we can do, but.
I share your concerns, Councillor, and honestly, I don't have a solution to that. Really, the only... So I showed the boardwalk and what happens. What I didn't say about that one viewing platform, not only did we remove the intervening boardwalk, we put a sign on that spot that actually spans the entire width of the boardwalk, and people are still going around it and still trying to access the viewing platform. And my point there is people will continue to do that regardless of how we try to close off access to the sanctuary itself. During the intervening period between removal and construction. So I am very much concerned about that. Honestly, I think the only ideal solution would be to have the funds in place as soon as possible so that we could actually begin construction in 24, 25 as opposed to 25, 26. So if for whatever reason the money did become available, we could move ahead sooner and hopefully minimize that risk.
Certainly hope that you put forth an ask to this council so we can consider it, financial ask.
It's in the next,
Is it?
yeah, it's in the next motion that I was going to get you to put on that we'll get to here. Councillor Kapasiak, do you have comments?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Really appreciate the way you've approached this project. I know in our discussion we talked about users, particularly those students in Parkland County School Division who attend. Maybe I could just get you to speak to that. And also, you talk about business community engagement. MyShack are certainly huge philanthropic supporters of our community and have demonstrated this over and over again. So this is a really nice fit. You mentioned Spruce Land Lumber. They're called Miller Wood Products now. So that's who, and Ben Swatsky's son, Josh, is engaged there. And I know he's like-minded. So you've got some good opportunities, and along with the partnership potential with Parkland County and looking at financial assistance, this is a credit to the county. So appreciate how you've approached this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Gamble.
Madam Chair, I just wanted a question. I just wondered if you could comment on student numbers.
Again, Council, we don't have the numbers. I know it was one of the significant concerns of the stewardship group when we indicated that we were going to remove the boardwalk for a period of time. They actually have a waiting list of schools that are looking to get out there and bring their students and do the pond dipping exercise and appreciate the sanctuary. And I was actually very surprised to learn that my daughter's school was there 2 days ago. I had no idea that was happening, and I was somewhat to my chagrin, I suppose, given the circumstance or the condition that it's currently in. But nevertheless, and please don't hold this against me, but my daughter goes to school in Edmonton simply because we don't have a German bilingual program in the county or in our towns out here. But again, that's an Edmonton school coming to Parkland County to appreciate what we have to offer, which I think is fantastic.
Mayor Gamble, any comments?
Great, thank you. My comments more relate to a regional basis. At the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board, we had a meeting last week, and the report is still in confidence, which will be available June 20th, to which I will distribute to council administration and the general public, related to benchmarking the Edmonton region amongst other regions similar to us throughout North America. And one of, without, saying much, one of the opportunities for our region relates to specific items like this, sanctuaries and amenities on a regional basis. And I think this is one that Parkland County will evaluate amongst other priorities. We also have the completion of the 100-mile trail system through the River Valley Alliance. These are things that are viewed as regional amenities that not just Parkland County residents would utilize, but the entire region would utilize and look at attracting new people to the region. This could be of a benefit as well. So excited to see this work, and I think this is a good one, and supportive of evaluating and looking at it. So thank you for coming in today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Kowalski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one more question, and maybe Ms. Cornell, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I believe that the Clifford E. Lee is in the Graminia recharge area for the Black Mud Creek and the White Mud Creek. Am I correct in that? So I'm thinking about actually the conservation groups that are working on saving watersheds and the importance. So perhaps Chris will pop you an email and connect you with the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance and the amount of work that they've done on looking at protecting watersheds. And that is, the president is the water specialist from EPCOR, and she's actually the one that's studying that recharge area and how it's impacting those two creeks. So I'm pretty sure Clifford E. Lee is in that recharge area. So there may be some really interesting partnerships based on keeping that watershed alive and healthy that may contribute. Thank you.
And I'll just make some comments as well. I think the benefits to our Parkland County residents and others that it draws cannot be understated. This is an important area. The boardwalk is fundamental to the sanctuary, and the safety, of course, is paramount to everything, as you said. I support any project that connects people to nature, so you have my full support on that. Excuse me. And I'm wondering if you might consider reaching out to the Atchison Business Association to aid you in addressing their business members. They could be of assistance to you. You could, sell portions of buy a meter of the boardwalk type thing. I'm sure they'd be willing to help, so going forward. With that, I'll look to council for any other comments on this motion, and I will call the question on this motion. All in favor? All right. That motion is carried, and I will look to Councillor Kuchar-Johnson if you would like to put the second motion on the floor, please.
Thank you. That the Governance and Priorities and Committee direct administration to include a financial contribution in the proposed 2025 Parkland County operating budget for council's consideration.
And there's the financial ask. We'll look to administration in the future to see what that will look like, but are there any other comments? Councillor Wiedemann, please.
Yeah, that's a fairly open motion. I'm not sure we're ready to propose a financial commitment yet because we haven't seen if there's any other funders or not. So it's, again, it's fairly open. I'm not sure where you want to go with it.
Just Mr. Cross, go ahead.
Madam Chair, to Councillor Wiedemann and all of committee. If council approves the motion, then we'll look to discuss with Mr. Hebben here potential options, and part of what we'll consider before coming back with some options for council to consider as part of the operating budget for 2025 is looking at those kinds of things. We'll ask those questions and try and get that information so that when we share some options for you, you have that and can consider that when you're making your decision.
I think that would be ideal. Councillor Kowalski?
And perhaps, Mr. Heffen, it may be worth seeing if you can get someone to lead a fundraising initiative for you, because I understand when you're on the ground, you're a conservationist, fundraising is not your expertise, and it's you can just see about some of the talent here. There's lots of people who have done lots of work around that. So I'm perhaps maybe through your conservation group on the land, there may be the opportunity to get 4 or 5 that might actually lead the charge on a fundraising project and do all the things that you do around it. What are the sponsorships look like? What's the tagline? All of those important things that help you attract money. So perhaps there's someone in that group, and maybe some of our staff might have some ideas local people that might help lead that kind of a charge, because there's some very talented fundraisers in Parkland County. Thank
I
you.
definitely agree with that. I don't think it'll be as insurmountable as you may think. So, looking to council for further comments, questions?
Great, thank you. I do appreciate the position Councillor Weidman is coming from, looking at this is going to be potentially a financial ask, and we don't know what that is yet. So certainly do appreciate you raising that. It's not an open-ended, that we will evaluate this opportunity with many opportunities, and respected administration will come back with various options of who else you've spoken to, what fundraising there might be relative to business interest, provincial interest, and see what that all kind of comes forward to us for consideration at budget time. We're looking at new trails. Maybe this is something that evaluates and looks at available dollars from that as well. So I do view this as a good one, and I look forward to seeing the options that come forward to us. Thank you.
All right, with that, seeing no other comments or questions, I will call the question. All in favor? All right, no objections, motion is carried. We will look forward to hearing more in the future. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
All right, moving along. We are at the proposed 6D2, proposed climate change action. And once again, I will look to Mr. Cross for introduction, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have Ms. Krista Quinnell, our Director of Agriculture and Environment, and she's here to present a proposed climate change action plan for committee's information and discussion, and she'd be pleased to answer any questions that committee may have for her. Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Quinnell. It is always a pleasure to see you, and you always have the most interesting projects, so please go ahead.
All right, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Cross, for the introduction and for those kind words, Councillor Burney. So I'm here today to provide an overview of the options that administration has researched and compiled for the county to begin taking action on climate change with a focus on local priorities for your review, questions, and discussion. So based on the strategic planning direction provided by Council, we have researched funding options for both a climate change adaptation plan as well as an operational or facilities energy efficiency management plan, and are recommending two projects to begin in 2025. The first is Parkland County's adaptation plan, which would assess the risks of climate change to municipal assets, services, and operations, and create a plan for actions that have the largest positive impact on our local economy, ecosystems, and the health and well-being of our residents. The second project would be a facilities energy management plan, and this would implement cost and energy savings as well as greenhouse gas reductions for county buildings. Up to $363,000 in grant opportunities to support these projects is available in 2024. And so there is urgency to have the support to pursue these grant funds before they are allocated and to plan for the long approval timelines that grants can have. So for the first project, we're proposing the creation of a facilities energy management plan. This project would create a 20-year plan to save money and increase energy efficiency within our county buildings. It would not assess community emissions, but it could include plans for small-scale solar development at our facilities, county facilities, if and when the return on investment makes sense. The project would include a 2-year grant application, two grant applications, a 2-year temporary position, a number of energy audits at our facilities, the development of an energy management plan, as well as the inclusion of some small-scale building retrofits. The major benefit of this project is attaining funding to support work that we are already doing through our life cycle planning process, and having the expertise to evaluate retrofits to ensure that the highest level of efficiencies in cost savings and energy are attained. But why apply for both grants? Well, it just makes sense. Because the grants may be able to offset the county's contribution to each project, as well as they can increase the capacity that is required for project management, even with the use of consultants to develop plans. The Facilities Energy Management Plan can be supported by the two grants, the first being the Municipal Climate Change Action Center's Energy Manager Program, which recently opened for its second round of funding. This program is a partnership between the RMA, Alberta municipalities, and the province. And it funds a 2-year temporary position, as well as funding for energy retrofit projects. Therefore, it supports work that we're already planning to do through our building life cycles, but which we can do in a more efficient way. It can cover 40 to 80% of the salary of this 2-year temporary position, up to a maximum of $120,000, plus $60,000 in project rebates. Therefore, over a 2-year time frame, municipal contribution would be around $54,000. The second grant program is the Federation for Canadian Municipalities Greenhouse Gas Reduction Pathways Feasibility Study. This would fund energy audits for 10 to 14 buildings, as well as the development of a 20-year plan to reduce our energy use. The plan will allow retrofit integration into our building life cycle plans to save costs. And up to 80% of the plan development is available through this program, which we have had estimated at around $169,000. So the municipal contribution would be around $34,000. For this grant program, we are expecting up to a 6-month time frame for approval. So as part of our research, we have also been in contact with a number of municipalities in our region who were participants in the first round of the Municipal Energy Manager Program. And they've provided some of the highlights from their programs, including $58,000 to $194,000 in annual cost savings achieved through energy efficiencies and alternative energy sources, as well as $1.1 to $1.8 million in grant funding leveraged by the positions alone. Many of the municipalities in our region have already participated in the first round of funding, including municipalities such as Brazeau County, Sturgeon County, Strathcona County, as well as Stony Plain and Spruce Grove. For the second project, we are proposing a climate change adaptation plan. This project would leverage the EMRB's Climate Risk and Vulnerabilities Assessment, as well as public engagement to create a local risk assessment that would identify major impacts to county operations and recommend short, medium, and long-term actions to reduce the risk and the cost of inaction for our community. It would include one grant application and could leverage the capacity of our municipal energy manager position if that grant is approved. This project would be supported by the Federation for Canadian Municipalities Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation Grant, which funds community-scale projects for climate adaptation, such as risk assessments, plans, and improving local documents for adaptation. This program is projected to open in the fall of 2024 and could pay for up to 60% of the project costs to develop the plan, which we've estimated to be around $80,000. This would require a municipal contribution of 40% or $32,000. So overall, administration is recommending that the county pursue both a facilities energy management plan as well as a climate change adaptation plan to realize energy efficiency, lower risks to our operations, and to reduce costs to our ratepayers. This would require approval of up to $120,000 from our environmental reserve funds to leverage $363,000 of grant funding for a total project cost of $483,000. Both projects would be contingent on receiving the grant funds and would not be completed if the grants are not received. If the committee is supportive of the proposed approach, administration will look to bring back the item to the June 25th council meeting for approval and then would begin the necessary grant application process over the summer. Overall, we're excited to have the opportunity to explore these projects for county residents, and I welcome any comments the committee might have.
Thank you, Ms. Quinnell. Appreciate that presentation. I will look to Mayor Gamble to put the motion on the floor.
Great, thank you. I'll move that the committee direct administration to present the climate action change action proposal at the June 24th, 2024 council meeting for approval as presented. And opening comments. Thank you for the presentation and the clarifications that you provided related to us becoming measuring of the plans that we talked about previously. I do see this as an opportunity for Parkland County to be a leader, similar to many of our other municipal partners, largely funded by grant. Our commitment from our environmental reserve is $120,000. So I understand the costs that we would be putting into this. My question would be, there's other information related to other municipalities achieving savings in energy. I'm assuming that we would also be achieving savings in energy, which would offset our cash investment to the project. Do you have any preliminary sense of what that might be, or is it too early to say yet?
That's a great question and an astute observation. So in talking to these other municipalities, a number of them have actually kept the position on after the first 2-year period because they've seen that it pays for itself and then some. So I would expect, based on just our energy costs, that we would be seeing at least tens of thousands of dollars in energy savings. We have done retrofits in the past, which have supported this as well, but yes, most municipalities have seen some form of annual cost savings. And those are actually all available on the Municipal Climate Change Action Center's website.
Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So just considering on that does fit into the equation. It would be good once we get to that point, should it be approved by council, that we measure the actual savings that we would be achieving, and then at that time the potentials of positions related to that. I think that's Parkland County demonstrating leadership in adaptation to climate change, and also, again, another example today of risk mitigation. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to consider this. So thank you.
Councillor Kowalski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Cornell. Thank you. I think I had chatted with staff a few times about maybe resurrecting a project that used the parking lot and covering it with solar as an option, or a rain garden. So perhaps that's a project that may fit, that would save us some energy. And maybe you can connect electric vehicle plug-ins to that solar array as well. And the whole climate change funding that we're talking about was a huge item at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. They had a huge booth. I mentioned to you, I spent an hour chatting with one. There's so many different opportunities and approaches that we can use. And they're looking for things to fund and creative demonstration projects as well. So I'm excited to see where Parkland County might go with approaching projects. Thank you.
Councillor Wiedemann?
Yeah, listening to what Mayor Gamble was saying, that's my sentiments as well. I'm always reluctant to approve projects when we don't have any definite cost savings and it results in hiring people. So if we're spending $120,000 out of environmental reserve, I think there should be some method to track what we're going to save. And my other concern is how closely are those people that we hire going to work with our facilities people? Because that usually is a disconnect in a lot of cases, especially in retrofits.
Those are both great comments. So we have been working with our facilities group. Neil was planning to be here this morning, but got taken away with something else. And we have been looking over the life cycle plan, so they would be working very closely. We've been talking about whether they would be positioned in that area or in our area, whether physically or not. So they would be working very closely with the facilities group. So we have estimated at this point, we can estimate the cost, basically the maximum cost of that without any of those savings included. Those savings would be on top of this, because this cost includes the rebates that we would get from grants. But any additional energy savings that we realize, which we would, that's what the audit process that we use to build the plan would include. Any additional savings would be on top of the cost that we have now. So it would reduce that $120,000 as that money goes back into the reserve.
All right, I'm just going to go to Mr. Dyke. He's got his signaling for comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an item of clarification on the motion itself. It does say that administration, or the council direct administration to come back on June 24th. It should be June 25th. So just when that motion is read, if that could be
Okay,
changed.
we'll make that change. All right, and Councillor Kubasiak, I see you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly support and echo the comments Mayor Gamble has provided. I think our community, I know I've received correspondence from people in our community seeing this as a leadership role for our municipality and that we need to become engaged. People have also asked about, from residential purposes, the Clean Energy Improvement Program. We did look at an alternate. We did discuss front-ending this and cost to the county reserves and whatnot, but I see this as a step and certainly a leadership step, and I'm hopeful that there are other programs that we could, as a result of this program engagement, begin to engage our community more. Thank you.
All right, I'll comment. We're a little late to the table, but we are showing a leadership role, which is great. I'm very happy to see this come forward, as we have been talking about it for a while. So I look forward to seeing what we're going to do and the savings to retrofitting our buildings. So I think it'll be an interesting project. We'll go from there. Oh, and I'm sorry, I missed Sally Kutcher-Johnson. I didn't see your hand up, so please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. You say that it's a plan, so it's not actual for, the money would not be for any retrofit type things. So if it's just for the plan, is it possible to look at what other places have done and maybe get to the retrofit portion of it and spending less time and money on the planning? I mean, I know you need to have some plan, but some things, like say we did solar panels, which, by the way, the school division, what they did with their solar panels was they used it as a car shade as well. So you have covered parking for the cars. So anyways, throw that in there.
So that's a great question, and I should clarify. Through Councillor Berney to Councillor Kutcher-Johnson. So the reason why we're proposing to apply for 2 grants is one grant supports the development of that 20-year plan, including audits of all of our qualifying buildings. The other program supports that 2-year position as well as some retrofits. So it would include some of those retrofits, and we're proposing to actually sync those 2 things with the life cycle plan so that we're using our expertise that we would then have on staff to make sure that we're doing our life cycle, the things that we're already planning to replace in our life cycle plan over the next 2 years in the most efficient way so we can realize those savings and then get those rebates. So it would include a couple of low-hanging fruit retrofits. There are a number of other grant programs that could support more work once we have a plan and some capacity to get those grants and those programs. And that's, I think, where those other municipalities have gone and why you see those large sums of grant funding that they've achieved through the program.
Yeah, you need that plan first. So, Councillor Wiedemann?
You kind of lost me there. So you're going to do an audit of the facilities. You're going to decide from the audit how much energy we're using, and you're going to use that data to come up with a strategy to save energy and refit the building, right? Okay, and then before you present that to council, or I guess when you present that to council, you'll have an idea of how much energy you're going to be saving so you can give that to us at that time. Is that correct? Okay.
Okay. Councillor Kowalski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Krista, I think I mentioned to you earlier that there was quite a bit of information about other types of funding that they're providing, like Green Shade. And I'm talking about some of our communities that would like, they talked about urban orchards and one First Nation received funding to put in a natural berry session to help with training. And I also think perhaps, is there a role for us to help do those assessments on our community halls?
So that's another good question. At this point, there used to be a grant program that actually supported that. I don't think it's available through the MCCAC anymore. But having the capacity, again, we're only looking at a temporary 2-year position. That's what the grant supports. So there could be the potential, if we have that capacity on staff, to support some of them through that. Again, short time frame, so I wouldn't want to commit to anything right at this moment, but yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, looking at no other comments. Did we put this motion forward? Do we need to read it to change to the 25th?
Thank you. Yes, the motion was slightly changed, so it would probably be prudent if I just read it again. The proposed motion that the committee direct administration to present the climate change action proposal at the June 25th, 2024 council meeting for approval as presented.
All right, we got the right date on there, and I will call the question. All in favor? All right, seeing no objections, the motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Quinnell, again for your presentation. All right, moving along, 7.1, I'll look to Councillor Kubasiak. Would you like to put that motion on the table? Rural
Madam
municipalities.
Chairman, move that the Rural Municipalities of Alberta contact newsletter be received for information as presented.
Comments, questions? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. And Councillor Kuchar-Johnson for the Federation of Community Municipalities update, I will look to you.
That the Federation of Canadian Municipalities update be received for as information.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the questions. All in favor? And the motion is carried. All right, that concludes our meeting. It is 11:07. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Next meeting will be July 2nd at 9 a.m. Have a great day, and go Oilers.
My son-in-law got interviewed all